faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books worldwide.
Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, I'll interpret the book The Diet Myth for you.
In today's information explosion, we often get all sorts of info about healthy eating. Is a low-fat diet actually good for you? Are cucumber, tomato, or banana diets reliable?
Are artificial sweeteners healthier than sugar?
Should we drink milk or eat cheese? All these varied health diet plans leave people baffled. As the author writes, in science and medicine, no area is as contentious as nutrition, full of infighting, lacking consensus, and short on solid research to back up all those dietary guidelines claiming health perks. The author, Tim Spector, is a professor of genetic epidemiology at King's College London and oversees the world's largest twin database as a senior researcher at the UK National Institute for Health Research. To find answers, he led a team of 50 experts in over 20 years of research, uncovering a key fact often overlooked. Our gut microbes are vital to our health. Through twin studies, Tim found that genes account for 60 to 70% of health differences, while the rest hinges on our gut microbes' health. Because different diets make gut microbes produce various molecules that alter hormones, metabolism, and immunity, impacting our health. And so, knowing and nurturing your gut microbes and eating what's good for them is crucial for a healthy diet. Next, I'll break the book down into two parts. First, how different foods affect gut microbes. Second, how to cultivate your microbial garden. Let's begin with part one. Food's effect on gut microbes. First, we need to clarify what microbes are. Microbes are organisms that can only be seen under a microscope. They're a collective term for ancient life forms that first inhabited Earth, including bacteria, viruses, fungi, and small protozoans. For instance, viruses lack cell structure and must infect living cells, while bacteria don't have a nucleus. Fungi are single-celled organisms with a nucleus, and they can be either unicellular or multicellular. Although we usually can't see microbes, their numbers are incredibly huge. Broadly speaking, gut microbes include all microorganisms living in the human intestinal tract. But in this book, the gut microbes discussed refer specifically to the bacteria totaling 100 trillion. Doesn't that sound mind-boggling?
So many bacteria. How exactly do they get into our bodies?
Actually, from the moment we're born, we're already interacting with bacteria. A baby in the amniotic fluid is basically sterile, but after passing through the mother's soft vagina during birth, the body picks up bacteria from the mother's urine, feces, and skin surface. When the baby swallows the first mouthful of milk, bacteria on the baby's lips, mouth, or mother's nipple, protected by the alkaline milk, safely pass through the stomach and reach the gut.
If conditions are right, even with few bacteria in the baby's gut, they can multiply rapidly, dividing every 40 to 60 minutes, producing billions or trillions of companions overnight. I know what's going on, but I know what's going on.
Thus, influenced by genetics, diet, and environment, each baby gradually forms a unique gut microbiome community. Now, we've basically gotten to know the trillions of invisible companions in our bodies. Actually, gut bacteria can be divided into three categories. First, probiotics that benefit human health. Second, conditional pathogens that harm humans only under specific conditions. Third, harmful bacteria that are detrimental to humans. Among these, probiotics are what we must protect most because their health directly affects ours. Normally, probiotics are the most abundant in the gut, suppressing bad bacteria to maintain our health. Only when the gut microbiota is imbalanced do conditional pathogens and harmful bacteria take over and damage our health. So, what determines the health of the gut microbiota? Through research, the author found that food directly affects the health of the gut microbiota. The author selected some controversial everyday foods, like fat, alcohol, coffee, and chocolate, to study their impact on gut microbes and human health. The author first mentions fat, which most people probably think is unhealthy. In other words, most people think a low-fat diet is healthier. Fats can be divided into saturated and unsaturated fats. Saturated fats are mainly found in animal fats, while unsaturated fats are in vegetable oils and fish oils. Let's talk about the dreaded saturated fats. They're fatty acids without double bonds in their molecular structure, making them more stable. Are they all unhealthy? But research shows that the French consume more saturated fat than Americans or Brits, yet their heart disease rate is less than a third of Britons, and they live 4 years longer on average than Americans. And 1/3 of the saturated fat consumed by the French comes from dairy products, especially milk and cheese. Per capita dairy consumption in France is almost double that in the US or UK. Does this suggest that saturated fat in dairy is good? To clarify the health impact of dairy-rich and saturated fat, the author conducted a trial comparing dairy and non-dairy diets. Both groups cut calories to lose weight, and the dairy group lost more body fat, which is good for heart health. A Spanish research team, after observing 8,000 subjects for 6.5 years, also found that long-term consumption of full-fat yogurt actually led to a slight weight loss. So dairy-saturated fat seems okay, but are all saturated fats good? Another expert recruited 49 volunteers for a 12-week trial. After all volunteers followed a low-fat diet for 6 weeks, they were split into 2 groups. One added cheese to their diet, the other added butter for another 6 weeks. Results showed that the cheese group's blood lipids and cholesterol didn't rise, but the butter groups did. This shows that not all saturated fats are good. They're different. Where's the difference? Perhaps you've already guessed the key point. Undoubtedly, probiotics, yogurt and cheese are rich in probiotics. What about milk, the pasteurized fresh milk we drink daily? Although it undergoes high-temperature sterilization, some heat-resistant, harmless bacteria, or probiotics, still survive. Butter has very few microbes, and to prove that, it's indeed the microbes that make saturated fat beneficial. Experts conducted experiments on mice and found that probiotics in milk promote the production of bile salts, which are key to removing harmful lipids. So, do probiotics have the same effect on humans? Researchers in Montreal had high cholesterol patients eat probiotic yogurt. After 9 weeks, harmful lipids decreased by 10%, while protective lipids increased. So whether the saturated fat you eat is beneficial depends on whether it's rich in microbes. Saturated fats rich in microbes can be part of your daily diet. Moving from saturated fats, let's look at unsaturated fats, fatty acids with double bonds in their molecular structure. Compared to saturated fats, people are much friendlier toward unsaturated fats. You've probably heard that olive oil, rich in unsaturated fats, is healthy. But is that really true? In the early 2000s, Spanish scientists launched a study with 7,500 seniors over 60 at high heart disease risk, randomly assigned to 3 diet groups. The first group was advised a low-fat diet. The second group was told to eat more fish and vegetables, but could consume all meats, dairy, and oils. The third group ate like the second, but added 30 grams nuts and 60 milliliters extra virgin olive oil daily. The trial lasted 4.5 years. Results showed the olive oil group had the lowest heart disease and stroke rates and best health markers like blood lipids, cholesterol, and blood pressure. Why is olive oil healthy? Studies found olive oil works by influencing the body's microbial community. About 80% of olive oil's fatty acids and nutrients reach the colon before absorption, interacting closely with gut microbes.
Microbes feed on this oily mix of fatty acids and polyphenols, producing antioxidants that remove cellular toxins and smaller short-chain fatty acids.
Short-chain fatty acids activate immunity, reduce harmful lipids, and inhibit pathogens like E. coli and H. pylori. Turns out, fats aren't as unhealthy as we thought, and low-fat diets aren't as healthy as imagined. The right fats actually help our probiotic friends thrive in the gut, which then rewards our health. Besides fats, we're also confused about alcohol. Is drinking beneficial or harmful? Some argue alcohol is definitely unhealthy. Russians, among the world's heaviest drinkers, once had alcohol-related deaths reaching 40%. Even today, a quarter of Russian men die before 55 due to alcohol-related health issues. If alcohol is harmful, why have wine-loving French had half the heart attack and stroke rates of less wine-drinking Brits over decades? A meta-analysis of 34 observational studies shows one small glass of red wine daily significantly prevents heart attacks and lowers mortality. Yet heavy drinking Russians have higher heart risks. Is French red wine better than Russian spirits? A Spanish research team tested this. Group 1 drank regular red wine. Group 2 drank low-alcohol wine. Group 3 drank spirits. After 3 months, all groups showed increased gut microbiome diversity, especially wine drinkers who saw huge boosts in bifidobacteria and provotola that reduce lipids and inflammation. Another U.S. study of 8,000 subjects also found regular red wine or beer drinkers had greatly increased gut microbe variety. Experts concluded alcohol's health effects come not from ethanol, but from polyphenols, inulin prebiotics in drinks like wine, beer. Prebiotics are food for probiotics, helping them thrive and benefiting our health. However, alcohol is now classified as a definite carcinogen. From this perspective, we must weigh pros and cons and strictly control intake. Globally, more people drink coffee daily than alcohol. So let's explore whether coffee is beneficial or harmful to health. Coffee opponents argue excess consumption causes anxiety, insomnia, and arrhythmia. Others believe carcinogens form during coffee bean roasting. In fact, there are 26 independent prospective studies worldwide tracking over 1 million coffee lovers from Europe, America, and Japan for years. They reached this conclusion. Drinking 3 to 4 cups of coffee daily reduces overall mortality by about 8% and lowers heart disease risk by 20%. However, coffee doesn't increase or decrease cancer risk. So where do its benefits come from? This is because coffee contains thousands of compounds, dozens of antioxidant polyphenols, plus fiber whose prebiotics nourish gut probiotics. As probiotics break down fiber, they produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate triggers gut hormone release, which controls blood sugar, reduces hunger, and lowers inflammation. This process also boosts growth of beneficial Faecalibacterium and Prevotella bacteria. In other words, your morning coffee wakes up your microbes, putting them to work for your health. Now let's look at chocolate. Hailed as a superfood. Is it worth the hype? Chocolate's main ingredient is cocoa beans, which contain over 200 chemicals, especially health-boosting flavonoids, a type of polyphenol with anti-inflammatory effects that influence gut microbes. In a clinical trial, volunteers taking cocoa flavonoids for 4 weeks showed increased bifidobacteria and lactobacilli, decreased harmful firmicutes, and reduced inflammation markers. Gram for gram, cocoa has more flavonoids than any food, truly nature's gift. But the author notes, only chocolate with over 70% cocoa is healthy. Why? Because low cocoa chocolate contains loads of added sugar or other additives. To get enough gut-healthy polyphenols from milk chocolate, you'd need 3 to 5 servings.
By then, you'd gain weight and get cavities. So cocoa content determines if chocolate is truly healthy.
Whether the food we eat is good or bad largely depends on whether our gut microbes can use or like it, which might be a plus for us. And so even if you didn't draw a good genetic hand, you can still gain a healthy physique by treating your gut microbes well. So how do we tend to our microbial garden? We can approach it from 2 angles: eating the right foods and choosing the right dietary habits. First, we need to eat the right foods. Besides the cheese, yogurt, olive oil, coffee, chocolate, and moderate red wine or beer we mentioned earlier, we also need to eat as many fiber-rich foods as possible. The main benefit of fiber is that it's rich in prebiotics, which helps gut microbiota grow. Besides coffee, what other foods are high in fiber? Fiber comes in many types. Soluble fiber found in oats, beans, and fruits, and insoluble fiber in whole grains, nuts, bran, and various veggies. But whether soluble or not, they all get broken down by gut bacteria producing gas and other byproducts. Most research shows that fiber from veggies is best for humans, followed by whole grains, while fruit fiber has the least clear effects. Simply put, eating plenty of veggies, moderate whole grains, and a little fruit daily gives us enough fiber. Next, let's focus on which foods are harmful to the microbial garden.
First up are high-sugar foods, like all kinds of sugars and refined grains.
Everyone knows too much sugar is bad. High blood sugar, obesity, cavities, aging, it's all tied to sugar. But what folks don't realize is that sugar also messes with gut microbiome balance.
When high sugar foods hit our gut, normal bacteria get replaced by harmful ones that feed on sugar.
These bad bacteria release signals that make us crave more sugar, leading to addiction, overconsumption, and eventually storing most sugar as visceral fat. So, any type of sugar is unhealthy, and liquid sugar is the most harmful, even those juices that seem naturally healthy.
Since sugar's so unhealthy, can we swap it with artificial sweeteners?
Experts long ago considered this issue. An Israeli team conducted a large-scale experiment where they fed normal diet mice small doses of 3 common artificial sweeteners.
Aspartame, sucralose, and saccharin cause significantly higher blood sugar levels than natural sugar in mice. Human volunteers showed identical results.
Do artificial sweeteners affect gut microbiota? In 2008, researchers found that rats fed safe doses of artificial sweeteners for 12 weeks showed reduced gut bacteria quantity and diversity, especially healthy strains. Sweeteners also triggered production of harmful short-chain fatty acids that disrupt microbiome function. Additionally, since artificial sweeteners lack natural sugars' antimicrobial properties, manufacturers add chemical preservatives to extend shelf life. These chemicals may profoundly impact gut microbes, reducing numbers and diversity and affecting immunity through microbial interactions. Despite seeming low-calorie and appearing frequently on labels, artificial sweeteners harm our microbial garden from every angle. But what if you crave sweetness or have diabetes? Choose pricier but healthier natural sweeteners like stevia or erythritol instead. Besides sugars, another substance harmful to our microbial garden is trans fats, synthetic fatty acids, created through artificial hydrogenation. They're rare in nature but common on food labels. Examples include hydrogenated vegetable oil, cocoa butter substitutes, margarine, shortening, and vegetable cream. Everyone knows trans fats increase cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes risks.
But how do they affect gut microbes?
As synthetic substances, the body can't recognize or break down trans fatty acids, disrupting key signaling molecules like short-chain fatty acids. Gut microbes rely precisely on these molecules to communicate with our immune and metabolic systems. So, trans fats ultimately affect our immune and metabolic systems. To reduce trans fat intake, avoid high-temperature fried foods. Heat alters fat structures and produces trans fats. Also, steer clear of all trans fat-containing foods like burgers, fries, fried chicken, pastries, cakes, chips, cookies, etc. These junk foods not only make us gain weight, but also harm health by affecting gut microbes. Lastly, let's discuss something not food, but often ingested: antibiotics. Their benefits are obvious. During 101, antibiotics saved millions threatened by deadly infections. Thus, humans trusted antibiotics deeply for a long time.
Before 1999, U.S. doctors prescribed 250 million antibiotic courses yearly. But are they truly safe?
Not necessarily. The author mentions identical twin sisters whose gut microbes differed as much as strangers. Research traced this to childhood antibiotic courses that killed microbes inherited from their mother. Worse, excess antibiotics kept their microbiomes disrupted, letting harmful bacteria overgrow and triggering body overreactions.
Thus, the sisters developed arthritis, nephritis, acne, etc., all antibiotic side effects.
Another victim, 2-year-old Erin, who got 2 antibiotics for a mosquito bite inflammation leading to severe colitis. Globally, half the children with this colitis die.
This happens because antibiotics deplete gut microbes, weakening protective bacteria and letting C. difficile overgrow, destroying immune and gut barrier functions.
Moreover, a study of 12,000 children showed antibiotics before 6 months raised obesity risk by 22% over 3 years. Microbiologist Marty tested mice. Even subtherapeutic antibiotic doses altered gut microbes, reduced probiotics, increased obesity-related leptin and hunger hormones, and raised weight fat disrupting lipid metabolism. Who would have thought antibiotics might cause lifelong obesity for some? Of course, seek doctors for emergencies. But for minor illnesses, try waiting and letting your body heal itself. Antibiotics might relieve symptoms faster, but they're devastating to our microbial garden. If you must take antibiotics, consume probiotics or probiotic-rich foods like cheese and yogurt during treatment. Or eat prebiotic-rich foods like veggies and whole grains to boost probiotic growth in your gut. Now we know how to choose foods to tend our microbial garden. Actually, besides choosing right foods, selecting proper eating patterns matters too. In the book, the author highly recommends intermittent fasting. Or more familiarly, it's called light fasting. The author here, light fasting means 5 normal eating days and 2 days at 1/3 normal calories weekly. Many know light fasting aids weight loss, but does it have other benefits? In 1956, Spanish researchers ran arguably inhumane experiments in a nursing home. 120 seniors split into 2 groups, one with fluctuating daily calories, low days at 1/3 of high days. The other group ate fixed senior-appropriate calories daily. After 3 years, the alternating group had half the mortality and disease rates of regular eaters. Shattering the consistent eating is better belief. Researchers tested mice and found Akkermansia bacteria, feeding on shed intestinal cells, boosted metabolism, microbiome diversity and activity, and immune function during eating. But prolonged eating makes this bacteria damage intestinal walls. So skipping breakfast occasionally or forgetting lunch when busy is fine. It's not about never eating. To boost your microbial garden beyond what or how you eat, is there more to consider? Of course, the author proposes another eye-opening view in the book. Don't be overly clean. Being too clean not only harms gut bacteria diversity, but also makes allergies more likely. Epidemiologist David studied infant asthma and eczema data and found, counter to intuition, babies in damp, crowded, poor hygiene settings were surprisingly less prone to asthma and eczema. Yet babies raised in sterile conditions with meticulous feeding often develop allergy-related diseases more easily. What's going on here? In Indiana, Amish children live by milking cows in dusty barns full of hay, animal hair, and manure, and drink loads of unpasteurized milk. Despite that, their allergy rate is only 7%. Swiss children with similar genetics have 7 times higher allergy rates. Numerous studies show that diverse microbes from dirty environments also enrich our internal microbes. Garden, healthy, diverse gut microbes keep the immune system active, responding correctly to foreign stimuli without overreacting to cause allergies. So, feel free to pet animals and let your kids roll in the grass. The diverse microbes from nature are a gift to our health. That's all for how to tend your microbial garden. We must choose the right foods. Use intermittent fasting to let microbes rest, and avoid overly clean, sterile environments. Deep research into gut microbes shows everyone's genes and innate microbiome are unique, making each person distinct. So no one-size-fits-all diet exists. When you hear claims that certain diets improve health, or that just eating apples, bananas, or tomatoes leads to healthy weight loss, just laugh it off. Your body isn't just yours. It's a garden for countless microbes. We share life with them, breathing and sharing fate throughout our lives. We all have a duty to care for them, because that's caring for ourselves. The diet myth? Well, that's all for this book's interpretation. You'll find the reading notes below the audio. See you next time.